Welcome to Contact Has Begun, brought to you by the grace of the World Puja Network, one of the last vestiges of truth concerning benevolent, spiritually, and technologically advanced off-world visitors. Some refer to these visitors as our greater family of man or returning ancient ancestors. I am James Gillen, your host, and our guests also include cutting-edge physicists, authors, teachers, and healers dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth. Let the journey begin. Greetings, this is James Gillen with Contact Has Begun. We've got another great show today. We've got the Freeman Perspective. And Freeman is an internationally known award-winning TV producer, filmmaker, radio talk show host, and lecturer. He's considered an expert in the fields of the occult, trauma-based mind control, government conspiracy, and ancient civilizations, right up our alley here. He graduated with an Associate of Arts and his honors in Interdisciplinary Studies and attended the Kansas University, specializing in ancient and environmental architecture. He has lectured extensively on the Templar history, secret signs and symbolisms of the Freemasonry, the ancient astronaut hypothesis, trauma-based mind control, and government cover-ups. Freeman publicly announced his fears that a false flag event would occur on 9/11, that W would be forced into office, and the economy would collapse on 10/13, and then the next president of America would have to be a natural-born status question. Interesting. He's appeared in the studio with Alex Jones, has been a guest on many radio shows, including Dr. Deagle's Nutramedical Report, Tex Mars, Power of Prophecy, Outside the Box, Deadline Live, The American Voice, and Gianna Hayes, Intel Strike Report, Paranormal Response Team, Ground Zero. I can go on and on and on, but he's covered just about everything here. So I think this is also interesting. The space-based weapons, chemtrails, ancient astronauts, Anna Nicole's death, Britney Spears, Disney, mind control, cloning technology in the ancient past and today. This sounds like a 12-hour show, but we're going to try to squeeze it into 1 hour here. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, James. It's
you want me to call you Freeman? Is that what you go by?
Yes.
Great.
Been Freeman a long time.
All righty. So there's so many places to go here. I'm really fascinated. Recently, there's some pretty crazy stuff going on. With the mind control event. I threw my TV set out the window in about '78, and I don't even watch it. And every once in a while, I'll turn one on, or I'll be getting tires in my car or something, and it's blaring, and I look at it, and there's a frequency coming out of the TV, and it's also saying you should be very afraid, terror, you should be very afraid, any minute now this could strike, and it's going to affect you personally, and just amazing where this has gone. And I'm wondering, I see people like a frog, in the pot of boiling water, and they don't really realize where TV has gone compared to where it was, in the past. And it is just undoubtedly just pure mind control.
No doubt. I mean, I grew up with Andy Griffith,
yeah.
Mayberry RFD, and Leave It to Beaver. And I really watched the whole collapse happen. It was Fox. And if anyone denies or doubts this, they didn't live through it. And we watched as it transferred from wholesomeness to the idea of family, to people taking care of one another, Lassie, a little house on the prairie, all of this, to Married with Children. Yeah. And Married with Children really was the key ingredient that started a whole new genre of American life. And it was the introduction of the dumb father with the arrogant wife that just wants to spend money, and the rebellious children. And people, Christians, coming out on the air are saying, Fox is bringing down America. And, of course, at that time we didn't really think about it, or I didn't so much. And I really realized that, yes, it actually was this moment that started the degeneration of the American culture. And when you realize that when Fox came out, that was their main show, really, that started to set this up, and then also then later with The Simpsons. Same thing there, of course, with the dumb father, the rebellious children. And Fox is the only word in the English language that will equate to 666.
Oh, yeah.
Because F is the 6th letter, O the 15th, and X the 24th. And, I don't think they chose this randomly. And really, of course, corporate logos and their identification is one of my mainstays.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the other corporate logos and what they equate to?
Yeah, when we start to look around our world, and it's amazing. It doesn't matter now if you're in looking at the pyramids in Giza, or if you're in the hometown in America or Japan. It doesn't matter. You're going to see Pizza Hut. You're going to see Starbucks. You're going to see McDonald's and Burger King. So this is a global attack, a global takeover by corporations. And when we look to corporations, we understand immediately that these things are not real. They are fabrications. If anything, they're golem, to take it back to a Hebrew term, where they have used contracts and talismans to construct an entity that is immortal and yet doesn't exist. Because really, corporations are immortal, and they've been given rights as if they were beings, and they're not. So
they're soulless.
Yeah, from the beginning, they are a form of magic, this whole idea of the corporate world. So now when we start to look at corporations and their logos, and now this is key because of who rises to the surface. Now you can run right through your fast food chains, and you can see, first of all, that Roy Kroc of McDonald's, or Dave Thomas of Wendy's, or Colonel Sanders. You put the list out there. They're all members of the secret society, the Freemasons. Mm-hmm. And as you go through your list of foundations, the founding members of these corporations, you will consistently come back to Freemasonry. So what you find is that each and every corporate logo that you're looking at as you're driving down the highway and they're bombarding your consciousness are actually secret symbols within Masonic ritual. And so if you were to become a Freemason, now the first thing about Freemasonry is that you cannot recruit for Freemasonry. An initiate needs to come there of his own free will and accord. And this, to me, is a critical sign for our spiritual acceptance to this type of sorcery. And they go in and they go through a ritual where they pretend to be Hiram Abiff, and the worshipful master of the lodge is the King Solomon, and 3 ruffians attempt to kill you, and finally do, and then you're resurrected. And within this ritual, you go and you circle an altar. Now, all of your presidents have done this. FDR even broke the altar because of his leg brace when he knelt before the Masonic altar. All of your corporate leaders have done this. They have performed this death and resurrection ritual inside of a darkened lodge with men standing at the door with swords blocking your way in. And they go through a magic ritual where they circle the altar, what they call circumambulation, and in this relive the tale of Hiram Abiff and his murder and then resurrection. So each of the corporate logos that you actually see are actually a process within this ritual. So let me see if I can illuminate some of these for you.
Okay.
I mean, there are very simple ones that we see all the time. The eye in the pyramid, the pyramid itself. These, to me, are more commonplace and self-explanatory. So we won't go to the simple ones with, like, the rising sun or the eye in the pyramid. Now, these are symbols of Horus. These are symbols of their risen god, and it has to go back to ancient Egyptian. Mm-hmm. But then you'll also find things like canted squares, like Dell. You'll see they have the canted square in there, or even Enron, they had the same thing. This is a code within that has to do with the mathematics of circling the altar, and it is a symbol of their circling of the altar. So whenever you see a canted square, and so often you'll see it as the letter E. And, of course, the letter E is the 5th letter in English, and this 5 goes back to the pentagram. And, of course, the pentagram is the Masonic blazing star and a mainstay inside of their lodges, and so all of the pentagrams that you see around you. When it gets really curious as you start to look to the gas stations, because they give you a lot more going on, Target's sun sign, Walmart's pentagram, these are a couple that would be obvious to me. With the gas stations like Shell and Texaco, now you have a pentagram and a shell. And as I began to discover the secrets behind the Freemasonic rituals and the connections to our goddess, Columbia, of course, America's goddess is Columbia. If no one knows, that's why our capital is the District of Columbia. And this is the fish goddess that you see on Starbucks. You know, it's not like Starbucks has the best coffee in the world. It's because they've shown their allegiance through their coded sign, and so the pentagram fish goddess with her fins up behind her head for sexual purposes is their logo, and it makes complete sense to me. Because this goddess actually is a representation of Venus. And that's where the star and the pentagram, or the shell and the pentagram come into the picture, because Venus is always rising on the shell. And when you view Venus from Earth, it makes a perfect pentagram every 8 years. Mm-hmm. Venus is another thing they worship inside of the lodge. Once you are resurrected as Hiram Abiff, the worshipful master brings you up and he puts you in what they call the 5 points of fellowship, and he gives you the secret word of a master mason, and he directs your attention to the pentagram hanging above the worshipful master's chair and says, this is Venus. Now, why would they worship Venus? Well, guess what? Venus is Lucifer. Go look it up in the dictionary. Pick up Lucifer, check it out, and sure enough, it's Venus. So now we're talking about a Luciferian brotherhood that's putting sexual symbols like Target's sun sign, or like head. There's so many sexual signs in there. It's astounding once you start to put it all together, and you see like the cube, the double cube of Chevron, the cube of Gateway, the bitten apple on your Macintosh, all of these Luciferian satanic symbols, swastikas, like your Columbia Sportswear logo is a swastika, a canted swastika, which goes back to the reason Hitler canted the swastika, which is the circumambulation of the altar. So you can really tear these things apart. And I got to a level where I was starting to realize that Freemasonry is actually based on Kabbalism, and therefore is based in Hebrew. And when I got around to the gas station, Phillips 66, I realized I had to look into my Kabbalistic dictionaries and had to look into the Hebrew significance of 6 and 6. And sure enough, okay, in Hebrew, the letter 6 is V. And so Phillips 66 gas station, or Highway 66, is actually VV in Hebrew, or W. And when I started to put this together is right when I was realizing that they were going to force a president into office as a psychological warfare on effect for Americans. And I heard the rumblings of this W, and I said, well, they're going to force that man into office because he has the Kabbalistic signature. 66 is the number of the fallen angels, according to Kabbalistic practices and as Hebrew practices. So here was another code for me to all of a sudden decipher this W, and I started seeing it everywhere and understanding how it came out. So if we look to a couple of movie companies, I'll just toss these last two out and then we can move on. W, or 6 and 6, when you look at Hitler's Volkswagen, the car of the people, he had two V's interlaced as his corporate logo. Well, the first V, the second V, but then they crossed the two, and that made VVV, which in Hebrew is 666. So every Volkswagen bug running around has 666 running on it, mostly being driven around by hippies, which is just so funny. But to take it one more level, that when I started taking this to Hollywood and understanding the different connections there, just to enlighten two of them, Village Roadshow Productions, who has put out the pictures like The Matrix or V for Vendetta, and these are